Welcome back, folks.
Welcome, Beer Mile Nation.
Luckily, we don't have to apologize this episode for April Fools, so we're past that, right?
No apologies. I think everyone forgave us. Thank you. Thank you for forgiving us. Nothing to apologize for this time. We're just living our best life over here.
On the show today, we have Jesse Williams of Sound Running. You might recognize the brand from some of the great meets that they've put on over the past, year or so.
Yeah, Sound Running has been around since officially formed in 2018, but during these crazy COVID times, Sound Running stepped up to the plate, organized some meets, got some fast runners to come in, crush some fast times. So that was all, in big part behind Jesse Williams putting those events on, taking on that risk, and bringing the people what they want, the sport of track and field.
Yeah, so we chat with Jesse today about quite a few things. We go into a little bit behind the scenes of what it logistically, financially takes to put on some of these events, as well as diving into how we can make the sport better.
Yeah, this is a little bit different than some of our past interviews we've done. Typically we have athletes on talking about their running and what they like to do outside of running as well. This is part of a kind of a two-part series, really. This week, this episode, we have Sound Running on. Next episode, we're going to have the Trials of Miles guys and Chris Chavez of Sidious Mag. And so we're giving you the behind the scenes of the sport of track and field, the business of track and field, everything that goes into events,
how everyone figured out how to run COVID meets.
Exactly. How to grow the sport, ideas for making it better, for getting more money into athletes' hands. And so we're doing something a little different these two episodes. We thought it might be fun to show you guys, and also for us to learn. Selfishly, we wanted to learn this, what it takes from a business standpoint to put something like this together.
I mean, yeah, spoiler alert. Well, it's not really a spoiler, but I guess, I changed my mind in today's podcast. So
That's true.
Stay tuned for that.
Adam got convinced, midway through or maybe 3/4 of the way through. He got convinced of one of his...
so essentially the way that this interview started was Jesse and I we exchanged some tweets on ye old Twitter just around the concept of quote unquote swish swish, air quotes for the audio only listeners, but the concept of free meets and the economics behind that, as well as kind of debating how to grow the sport while also remaining self-sufficient or self-sustaining.
Yeah. So Jesse had some great points here, and Adam, an open-minded guy, he's open to debate and to counter arguments and criticism, and he's willing to adapt.
The big point is that we all want the same thing. We all want the sport to grow, both in terms of viewership as well as quality of the meets that are getting put on. We want more meets stateside as opposed to everyone going over to Europe for the entire summer and us missing out on local meets. So everyone kind of wants the same thing, and I think Jesse had a lot of good points contrary to what I initially thought, and I think you'll find this chat interesting.
Yeah, so part one of our two-part series going behind the scenes of some of these meets and the companies that run them. So we're going to get to Jesse in just a second here. Right before we do, we got some swag winners, and we got to give some shout outs to those who gave us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and sent them our way on Instagram. So thanks so much for doing that. Again, if you want to enter the giveaway, just go to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review, leave an actual review, and it can be anything. I don't know, maybe what should it be for this episode? What should people say?
For this episode,
in the past, we've done saying that you love your mom. We've done talking about Blue Moon. We've said to give us a stock pick.
Those were some good ones.
What else do we have for people to leave in the reviews that are some nice little inside jokes?
I would say for this one, you should do Beer Mile pay-per-view.
Just say that we should have Beer Mile pay-per-view?
Yeah.
Okay. And you'll get that reference when we start talking to Jesse as well. He'll touch on that piece of it. So Beer Mile pay-per-view, leave us that review, and you can DM us on Instagram a screenshot of that review to be entered in the giveaway. Also, actually, I kind of thought of this. I don't know why we didn't do this before, but maybe you can be double entered into the giveaway if you also just share that screenshot on your story on Instagram and tag us. And then, more people will actually hear about the show that way, and hopefully it'll kind of grow organically as well. And so
that's a good idea.
You're double entered if you also share it on your story. So the shout outs for this week, we've got Joey Shandel.
I don't know. You're the official name pronouncer here, so I think that's what we're sticking
Joey
with.
Shandel, Landon Delosier. Delosier.
Sorry, I stole your job. Continue.
Landon Delosier, Ava Christine. We got Andrew. He doesn't have a last name on Insta. He's OC_O_yes. Jack Underwood and Michael Finley. So thank you to the 6 of you, and let's do 2 swag winners because we're more generous. We're more generous than one. I mean, we never just do one, especially when you have this quantity. So
true.
For sure, I love the message that you sent us, Ava. You're definitely getting a swag of your choice. So
good call.
Hit us up, and I'll let you take the other one. Who would you like to pick of these other folks? And Adam did not. I actually responded to these DMs and saw them. So Adam has no bias here. He's strictly looking at names.
Oh, really? So the one message that I remember seeing before, it might have been after you responded, but I saw Jack Underwood's message and I was like, oh, that's a good one.
Okay.
Very genuine message. Jack Underwood, you're getting some swag.
Perfect. Ava and Jack, hit us up. And for the other guys that submitted reviews our way, thanks so much. And you can enter the giveaway again. Just, share the Beer Mile on your story, the Beer Mile podcast. Just, it's pretty easy. Just interact with us in some way. Leave a comment on YouTube.
We'll throw your name in the spreadsheet.
We'll throw your name back in the drawing again in a future week. So not all is lost if you don't get picked the first time around. So really appreciate that. Again, there's always a video version of this podcast on YouTube on Beer Mile Media. That's our YouTube channel. So we'd appreciate you subscribing there. And also we do have the ability to leave us a voice message. So if you want to for sure get front and center on the show, ask a question, say something offensive, just leave us a voice message on Anchor.
Ooh, I have a request.
Yeah.
If you send an audio message roasting me,
yes.
It doesn't matter what it's about, just roast me and I'll for the first 5 people that send an audio message roasting me, I'll send you swag personally.
Okay, perfect. So anchor.fm/beer-mile-media. That link is also in the description. Give Adam a roast via voice message.
I don't think you can hurt my feelings, but I really want you to prove me wrong.
God, this is going to be so funny. I'm excited for this. Yeah,
I think it's great.
Roast Adam this episode, and maybe next episode we can say to roast me.
I like
but
that.
Let's start with roasting Adam this time around. So give him your best roast, everybody. And last piece that I'll plug here, we got a Strava group. It's been growing.
Dude,
it's fun to see.
I checked it today. It's like almost at 250, I think.
It's a blast to see what everyone's doing for training. We see all of your names and, for those that DM us and comment on our stuff. And so it's awesome to see your training as well, because that's an even added touch of
all of today. I was just like swiping through people that I can like recognize from Instagram or whatever other social media platform that they've interacted with us. I'm like, oh, they're on Strava. They're running this many miles a week. I've like commented on a few people's workouts. I don't know. It's good fun.
Yeah, definitely. So hit us up in the Strava group, just Beer Mile. You'll see our little orange mascot running beer can guy on there. It's pretty hard to miss. So let's get into it with Jesse. Right after we interview Jesse, we'll do the beer of the week. We got another one from Ryan from Wisconsin. Shout out. This is one of the 3 that he sent us from Fifth Ward Brewing.
High standards.
We reviewed the first one. Go back to the last episode with Ari Clow if you want to see us review the first one from Fifth Ward, the APA. Now we're on to the Honey Saffron Wheat Ale. So that's coming in the outro after we interview Jesse, but let's get into it. Welcome, Jesse, to the Beer Mile podcast. Jesse was formerly the head of sports marketing at Brooks, and in commemoration of that, I got a Brooks koozie here on my beer. And now he is the, I guess, owner. I don't know what you give yourself as a title at Sound Running. Co-founder, owner, CEO, doing big things at Sound Running. So welcome to the show, Jesse.
Yeah, thanks for having me. To kick things off, I think, especially in the last year or so with some of the track meets you've put on, I think a number of people out there have heard of sound running and the sound running track meets. Could you just give us a taste of what sound running is and what all you guys are doing?
Yeah, we started about 2 years ago, and we're really originally a training platform. We were trying to build custom training plans for events, and it kind of started from there. And then I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2019, there was like World was like a month late, and so USA's was like a month late. And so there were no meets for like 5 weeks leading into USA's. And all these coaches were like, oh, I wish there was something. And I think Danny Mackey, the coach of the Beast, was actually visiting at the time. And he was like, just perfect here. We should just have a meet here. And I was like, man, I'll put one on. It'd be fun. I was like, it's not really what I do, but it was like, it'd be fun to do. And we put it on and it went really well. And then started looking at it. I was like, I always complained about our athletes going to Europe over the summer because we spent so much money and then they would just go race each other or other Americans.
Right.
I was like, what are we doing? And it was like, and also from a marketing point of view, we're like, it felt like we weren't getting the value that we would get if they were right here, or at least it was out of sight, out of mind. So I kind of, as soon as we did that meet, like the next day I was like, okay, we're doing this. This is what we're doing, and so that kind of started it. And then we had these grand plans for 2020 and then everything happened. So that's kind of where it started and how we got into events. And then, COVID gave us some serious hurdles. And I think we were able to pull off our kind of, instead of these huge, awesome events that we had plans for, it just became pull off an event, have an event. And so that became the new kind of benchmark was, can we even have one? And it was I would say a very stressful process. It looks like maybe cleanish on the other side. You get to watch it online and people run fast. But there were times where like 3 days before the meet, we thought we were going to cancel. And even like when people were sitting in hotels, like already in town. So there's been some moments where I was like, we're not doing this anymore, whatever. But I think we're on the other side of that. Hopefully, we'll see.
Yeah, so I guess for the 2021 events, at least the ones upcoming, so probably this winter and then this spring, a lot of the events are still kind of that last minute, like throwing things together and not knowing if it's going to happen or not. You have the Sunset Tour planned for this summer. Are you able to kind of get back in that cycle where you're able to plan this more grand event and kind of have it that way? Or are you still taking into account enough of the limitations and potential risks that it's not quite to the level of an event that you would be looking to put on as part of sound running?
Yeah, it's kind of ever changing, like you said. So we have an event in about 5 weeks, our May track meet, which is when that event was always supposed to be a May kind of qualifier event. Last year we moved it to December because that fit better for everybody's schedule. So now it's back in May. I think that event will be a hybrid. As far as having like full fields and kind of a really big opportunity for athletes, I think we're going to be able to do that part. As far as having like stands being full and, like all the bells and whistles of like, entertainment, whatever, that's still up in the air. I think we might be able to allow a very little amount of fans in and kind of require vaccination or something to that level. Cause we're going to be right at that like turning point, I think, when things like change. And I've heard things of like, everybody's going to get this vaccination card that has a QR code on it and you're going to be able to scan it and all this. And if that happens, maybe we can host even more people. And maybe if the CDC says like, good to go, as far as like people with the vaccine can't pass it along and all that stuff. It's weird. During this whole process, we went from like testing people ourselves last July and like going through this contact tracing gigantic spreadsheet and feel like basically we're, the medical professionals, all the way to like, now I feel like I'm so in tune with what's going on with the CDC and everything. It feels kind of weird because I never pay attention to that stuff.
Find your rhythm with the CDC.
So, but July is looking a lot better. I think we've talked to some of the facilities, and instead of facilities being like, dude, we're not even at work, and we've been furloughed, or school's not even happening till 2022, like whatever. I think facilities are starting to go, oh yeah, actually, we should talk. I'm meeting with my advisor tomorrow. We're talking about how we're going to roll out for the summer. And so you're like, okay, that's the first time that's happened in a while. You know, we might be able to actually put where the race is going to be on the website. You know, it's been a weird thing to be like, oh, it's secret.
Yeah.
Like, especially track.
It's like my favorite thing to see is all the athletes posting on Instagram, like someplace in blank, someplace in Texas. In hindsight, I know you mentioned 2020, like you had these huge plans to throw these really grand events, but what are your thoughts? I guess from my perspective, for me, sound running personally like came onto the map because like the governing bodies that weren't putting on meets essentially for like really the past 6 months to a year. So how do you kind of evaluate the potential success of 2020 against like what actually happened and maybe that being a different type of success, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, success in 2020 became actually giving athletes opportunities. Doesn't matter like how big the meet was or whatever, you know, it just became, can you pull off a safe event? And our December event, I was so going back and forth every day on, should we do this? Should we not do this? I had a big Zoom call with probably like 30 agents and coaches who all had basically people running about 2 weeks out. I said, we lost our venue. Do you guys still want me to keep going forward? And they're like, dude, this is the only thing on the schedule. Please do. And I was like, okay, because you guys see the cases rising and we're going to require 2 tests. We're going to require everybody that walks in that stadium to have 2 tests, even like coaches and agents and whatever. And as far as I know, we were the only meet that had gone that strict. And I still was like, I don't know if we should do this. And every single one of those coaches and agents basically said, please do, please keep. So we found another facility last second. The athletes never really knew that was happening behind the scenes. Only the coaches and agents did. So we switched facilities within the last 10 days. And because we had never given out where it was, really nobody knew that we switched facilities. So that became, I promise you, that was December 4th and 5th. On like December 6th, I was like, I remember I went for a run with my buddy and I was like, we have to do the slowest, easiest run in history right now. I was like, I'm done. Because it was really, I don't care about the stress of organizing an event, the stress of not being able to control the fact that like LA County or Orange County or somebody could come in and just be like, oh, we heard about this meet. You're not having it. And like, I was just waiting at any point in time for somebody to say that. Yeah. But we were really lucky. The school we worked with, they've just been really dialed and they've had their own COVID protocols for their school that have worked really well. And so I would say that was success this year. But I think there's so much room to take what we've done and take it up 10 notches, but keep the same spirit, which is athlete first, fan first. You know, like if we're always looking through the eyes of those two groups, maybe not always get it right, but if we're trying, you know, like trial and error, you know, whatever it is, I think we'll be doing the right thing. You know, I'm fine messing up here and there, as long as we're like trying to do it for the right reason. Absolutely. And so that's what 2021 is going to be, is hopefully us taking those next steps. There's some pretty exciting things coming. So we'll see. Yeah.
And as difficult as it was to put on those meets, I mean, do you think that the COVID in a way maybe helped the Sound Running brand? I'm just thinking in terms of this year, we kind of saw like a lot of the big meets that would normally happen and say like USATF sponsored meets, they didn't happen. And so like people like you, Sound Running, had to step up. Like the American Track League came about. You have the Trials and Miles. And so like Sound Running, I personally hadn't heard of until the track meet in December. That was the first time I'd heard of it. And then we were a part of the meet in Texas, the Texas qualifier with Trials and Miles. And similarly there, like I'd heard of their name, but they became like you and them became very prominent because you had the top caliber athletes in the US running fast times, competing at your meets. I don't know. What do you think that would have happened anyway if the bigger meets were still going on, or do you think that actually allowed you to kind of get talent you would have maybe not had with those other meets?
So I think the one thing it changed was we were the only game in town. I truthfully think we would have had the same athletes, because the one thing that we have that I'm very lucky is my former job. I knew all the agents and coaches. And so when we did our first meet in 2019, I was like, well, I don't know if I really want to do this. Let me see what it is. And I legit just sent a couple texts and everybody was like, yeah, we're in. And I was like, okay. And sometimes I take that for granted that like getting people to show up, because they knew me from Brooks, I think they trusted me. And so like a good example is in this May at our meet, there are a bunch of events on the calendar now and our fields are insane. I can't think of people that aren't coming, like it's going to be insane. And so, I do think we would get the same people, but the thing that all of us benefited from was it was just us. Like, it wasn't like there were 3 other meets and then our meet happened. It was like, we were the only meet in December and we were the only thing for months. And then Trials and Miles was like the only thing in February, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So the only difference I think is there would have been other like stuff, out there kind of taking it attention. Instead, the fans were just like, we got this one thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do say, like, back to your point, we did benefit from that, but and I would say that we were willing to take the risk. Maybe we're hard-headed, or maybe like for me, I was like, well, what else am I going to do if we're not going to put these meets on? Like, right, we're going to figure this out. And once we kind of figured it out in August with our smaller Sunset Tour meets, where we only had like 5 people in this race and 10 people in this race and whatever, we started looking at December and we're like, oh, we can go bigger. We can do this right. Now that we have this system, we didn't know cases were going to go insane and that we were going to be up against that. But, nobody knew any of that stuff.
Right.
What do you think that, like, that was kind of your competitive advantage, like during, well, I guess COVID's still kind of going on, but do you think that was your competitive advantage where like you were willing to take the hit on throwing this huge event and probably like having less of a profit? I mean, not even probably, like, yeah. But like, do you think that that's why USATF and other of the other 3 or 2 big bodies, like, do you think that's why they didn't throw events, was because it was not profitable as from the investment side? Because I think
well, so USATF has their investments kind of no matter what. They have their TV deal and they have their sponsors. And if anything, putting on events keeps all of those people happy. So that's why I was surprised it never happened. But at the same time, USATF is this giant organization that has a lot of eyeballs on it. And they have to mitigate their risk at a much different level than I do. Like, Sound Running, for all intents and purposes, is like me. So like, I can take a hit if somebody doesn't like what we do or whatever. And I personally felt what we were doing was safe. And the way I kind of looked at it in December was when we talked for a split second about not doing the meet, all these other people were like, well, maybe we'll do this here. Maybe we'll do this. And I just thought, you know what? If we do it, I know we'll be safe. If I let all these other people go and do their own thing, like, I don't know. And so I actually felt like putting it on was the safer option than like letting all these other people go do their thing. And we were like crazy. I mean, we got to the point where we had athletes so scared that they would get to the starting line with their masks on and they thought they had to race with their mask on. And I was like, no, you guys can take those off for the race. But I was like, that's good. We did our job. We had them like dialed, and people didn't try to sneak in. We didn't have like, any of that stuff. I think USATF doesn't have the ability to be that nimble. They're too big. And I don't know. I go back and forth. Part of me says like, oh, where were they during this year? And then part of me is like, I think they were kind of looking at this as like, all of our money comes from the Olympics and the Olympic trials, and our focus is making sure we do that. But we would have loved a little bit of help. That'd have been nice. But they also they lost a lot of their revenue also comes from the ton of events that they put on. There's registration costs. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of registration revenue they lost this year by not having events. And participation is actually a really good thing for them, and not have it. So I'm sure I don't know the full story of why they didn't, but I know because we were smaller and maybe hard-headed and maybe just maybe not risk adverse enough is why we pulled it off.
Yeah. It's good to hear that USATF announced that they're going to have, the series of meets this spring / leading into the Olympic trials. It's good to hear that you still are confident that you're going to have one of the best, if not the best fields, across the events at your meets in May. So that's exciting stuff. I guess any teasers on who's running, what if there's some big marks in certain events that people are going for, records, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say, I was looking at it today, and the fields and some of the events are so deep that I'm like, I don't know how to make an A heat and a B heat without making people really upset. And it's inevitable anyway. It's going to happen, but people are always going to be like, well, I should be in this heat. And so I would say in the 5K and 10K, name someone who doesn't have the standard and they're at the meet aiming for the standard. Okay. So there's some really, really good people coming that are still trying to hit that 10K standard. I know a good example is Joe Klecker still didn't hit the 10K standard. He's run 27:35. He can obviously get it, but he needs, the right day. Same with Hassan Mead and folks so we're going to see some really good, you would think everybody has a standard at this point with all the, but there are, I would say anybody that doesn't have the standard is coming to get it. And then the 800, 1500 fields are really good. And then what's different with this meet is we do have field events and sprints, and which is new for us. But I think those fields are going to be really good as well. So it'll be, I'm pretty excited to see that because, you never know. I mean, people instantly take their eye off the ball and then so I was happy to think that what we did at COVID, maybe that gained everybody's trust, and they're like, okay, well, we're behind this. We're supporting these guys, because they made it, our season possible last year.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
You mentioned about a lot of the money or revenue coming through because of the Olympics. Do you think that is good for the growth of the sport, or would you rather have the money come from meets spread across the regular season outside of the Olympics?
This is when I would say maybe this is controversial, and I used to say this when I was at Brooks, Olympics is horrible for our sport. They're horrible because not that they're not great, but look at any other sport and the Olympics are not the pinnacle. Maybe swimming's not but baseball, football doesn't, baseball, basketball, all these big revenue sports. Olympics are important. They're very important, but NBA championships still more important. Mm-hmm. And the World Series is still more important. It's still, a bigger money deal for those athletes as well. And so the problem with the Olympics for our sport is because contracts are built around the Olympics, athletes think it's the only thing that matters. And I remember a good example is one of our athletes when I was at Brooks, she didn't make the Olympic team. And then she immediately went to Europe and she just won. She won a Diamond League. She won a couple smaller meets, and she just acted like she had the worst season ever and that her season was worthless. And she had won a bunch of meets leading into the trials. I was like, think about if you're a professional and you're lucky and you race 10 years, and let's say you race 10 times a year, you race 100 times as a professional, you might get 2 to 3 Olympic trials out of there, depending on when. You're going to define your career of 100 races on 3 races.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I was like, you won this meet, you won this meet, you won this meet. And I was like, and unfortunately for us at Brooks, if you did make the Olympic team, you're going to run in a Nike USA singlet. It's kind of worthless for us. And at the time, Rule 40 was really, really strict, which means we couldn't have talked about her. We couldn't have used her in an advertisement. She couldn't have thanked us in social media. Like, to me, I was like, I mean, I love for you to make the Olympics, but what you did that summer actually ended up being golden for us. And so that's the problem, is all the contracts are built around that. And so one of the things we'd like to do with this Pro Track series we've started is we'd like to, what if contracts were built around the Pro Track series?
That was my follow-up question.
So like if all the bonuses were like, hey, if you win, if you're one of the top people at these meets, or if your overall prize, your overall ranking at the meets was this, well, then not only will everybody show up every single year for all the meets, and it's something fans can count on, but now the athlete's livelihood has a yearly metric. It's not every 4 years, my livelihood is like on the line. I mean, look at how marathoners are. Like Ryan Hall, to run a marathon at the Olympics takes a huge pay cut.
Yeah. Yep.
Because he makes way more in prize money. The only way he nets out is if he wins a medal. If he wins a medal, then all his prize money goes up and his appearance money goes up. But unless he wins a medal, he took probably for him, he probably took like $500,000 pay cut.
Exactly.
To run the Olympic marathon.
Yep.
But he did it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like everything about it is kind of incentivizing the wrong thing. Like for the athlete, it's even not only looking at like the money piece of it, where it's like the difference. So like if you look at, I don't know, a mile race or a 5K race, like a second difference in your time at that one race is like, $1 million difference over a career or whatever it is. So it's like for the athlete, it's super, super stressful as well. It's just like the mental aspect of it is it's not good for the athlete at all, and also monetarily. So that piece of it's like horrible. And then it's also just from the fans' perspective, it's not, you don't get excitement throughout the year, because then you do have cases where like Bowerman Track Club, for example, they're just known for not racing super often because they are so good at peaking for the right races, which in this case, the right race is the Olympics, which they do super well at doing that. And, they're maximizing their potential at the World Championships and Olympics. But then just from a fan's perspective, you don't get to see them race as often. So then you don't get that storyline to build over time, and it's not as exciting because basically every race that happens, if it's not the Olympics, you're like, well, if they do bad, it doesn't matter because the Olympics is all that matters. And if they do well, it's like, well, yeah, but if they don't make the Olympic team, it doesn't matter. So it's just such a weird dynamic that that's put in place by having the contracts be all based from the shoe companies and being based on Olympics and world medals versus any sort of incentive in like a league or a team atmosphere that would make things just more entertaining all around, and probably more fun for the athletes too. I would wager.
So if you're a fan, how do you know what to pay attention to? The Olympics, they tell you, and granted, the Olympics are still only for like the smallest percentage of our sport. Like think about how many good people don't. Daniel Komen didn't go to the Olympics. You know what I mean? So, and that summer he went and set like 2 or 3 world records. So it's a weird thing to put all the value into that. But if we have a formal track season where people know to tune in, May through August is kind of the track season, and there's basically 1 to 2 big meets a month, and we can follow that, and we see the same people racing, and everybody know year in, year out they can follow that. Right now, you have to be so in the know to follow the sport, because you have to be like, well, there's this meet in Palo Alto where it's a college meet, but pros run there. And then there's this meet in Eugene, and that's kind of the big pro meet, but only a couple pros get to run from the US. And then there is US championships, and everybody runs that. And then, by the way, everybody goes to Europe. And then did you know that there's worlds in between the Olympic years, and worlds is the same as the Olympics? Nobody knows that. Like, people that pay fairly close attention to the sport don't know that. And we need to build something that's easy. I always joke, I use my mom as an example. It's like, my mom can't follow it. You know, she doesn't know, well, I don't get this. Same with like Olympic trials qualifying. How would a person ever watch that and understand why 8th place gets to go to the Olympics, but 3rd place doesn't? And so we just have to make it easy and approachable. And I'm not saying that fixes everything, but man, it's a start. Like, if people can't understand it, you know, if you need like the super insider knowledge to know how to follow the sport, or like, there's our barricade,
How do you like kind of approach that problem? Is it more on like the organization side where you're trying to make things at least like a tiny bit simpler, or are there other ideas around making that type of process more accessible to people who aren't on the inside?
Yeah, the goal is, you know, with this series is to have, you know, 7 to 10 meets every year, and to connect them all, and to make a point system, and to make it valuable where athletes want to come to the majority of them. And we have to do that. We have to figure out how to make that so valuable that they want to come. And then we have to do our job on the back end of getting like agents and brands to like value those races enough to build it into the contracts. Then all of a sudden, and these meets they're not college meets where pros also run. They're pro meets. And so it won't happen overnight, but what if we did that for 2 or 3 years, and we built up just that continuity of like, people can follow it. And, you know, I'm in LA, and I think of everything as laddering up to the 2028 games. It's like, well, if we do things right, you know, the Sunset Tour meets that we have in July would be like the 3 best meets in the world leading up to the LA games.
Yeah.
But they're also US based. Like, how cool would that be to have that good of, you know? So it's not a one and done thing, but I think there's a lot of people doing good stuff. And I was saying it earlier, I'm okay with like trying stuff and messing up as long as we're trying stuff.
Yeah.
Because obviously, like, the way it's working right now, outside of Eugene, which is a bit of an anomaly in the world as far as like track fandom and like the, you know, everything they have, the sport's not really working. And so, yeah, I think anything we're trying, like, that's why I never really will fault anybody for like trying something, even if it fails. Like, we did stuff when I was at Brooks where we had ideas and we thought it was the greatest idea in the world. And then we're like, maybe we thought it was a good idea. It wasn't that great of an idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it takes obviously it takes a lot of money though to incentivize athletes to value this track series over anything else. And so how are you thinking about it from a business model perspective of like, obviously there's stepping stones, but like, how do we get to the point where there's enough money in a track series coming in, and like, where's it coming from? But how do you get to that point where there's that money coming in that is enough to say that this is better than your 40K, 30K base salary you're getting from your shoe company? Like, this is more valuable to you. Like, does it involve signing athletes to like a league? Does it involve like reliance on outside sponsors supporting it? Like, how are you thinking about that from a business model perspective?
Yeah, I mean, sponsorship is key. Getting big sponsors involved will help not only create a professional organization, because part of our sport is there's not enough people doing this as a job. Yeah. Everybody's kind of just doing it as their side thing.
It's a side hustle. Yeah.
You know? And so we need people where like, this is all they do. This is what they're focused on. And I think we need people not only doing that and getting paid for that, which that requires a bunch of money, but then you need to have enough money at these meets, whether it's an appearance fee or whether it's so much money on the line for prize money that itself is enticing enough to come. And then I think once you get the athletes and the continuity, the other stuff comes in. Unfortunately, the way like most of these things work is once it starts working is when it really starts working, right? But getting it there is the hard part. And so having to find sponsors that believe in it, figuring out the broadcast model that works, that not only brings in more fans, but puts money in the athlete's hands. That's a big piece right now, is like, how do we get, like right now, the NBA players, they share in the TV contract.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know every single sport and how it works, but that money normally funnels into the athlete's hands one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And by far the most money in every sport comes from TV contracts. But in our sport, the biggest TV contract out there, the Olympics, athletes don't get any of that. None of it. I mean, you know, I think Nick Simmons was the one famous for talking about how basically, hey, we go there, we win a medal and maybe you get like 20 grand or 30 grand, but like they're selling some of the Allison Felix legit is part of the reason NBC paid so much for the broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not going to get any of that pie.
Yeah.
She should get millions of dollars from the US or from the IOC. Somebody like her who will actually put hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people on their couch to watch the games. Yep. You know, like she should get a piece of that. And I think we have to figure out how to do that on the domestic level, you know, and even at the Diamond League level. Like there's huge prize money in the Diamond Leagues. But it's still the Usain Bolts of the world that get probably like 80% of it. And then that second tier is still like, you know, maybe they're getting 20K to show up, 30K to show up, 10K to show up. Usain Bolt gets 250K to show up. And that's real money, right? For those pros. I mean, not that 30K per meet or something is bad, but it's still, if you think about it, pretty small. And in the US, in the US, we're not even anywhere near that.
Right.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah. Can you talk about like the economics of putting on a track meet? I think so. We definitely, and it's interesting you bring up Nick Simmons too, because he was our first guest on our podcast, and he dove into like all of these pieces. And I mean, he was famous for, you know, at the right times.
He brought his suit against.
Exactly. He brought his voice at the right times on the right topics during his career, and it fit perfectly into the overall narrative. And I guess you were at Brooks at the same time, and so I'm sure you probably have pretty favorable view of him as well on doing some of those things and being a big voice, because I think he really elevated Brooks as a brand as well as a part of it, because he was very strategic in the way he did things. But I think a lot of our listeners, like the world of track is such a black box of like who's getting money, like who makes money, how much do they make, like what does it cost to put on an event, like what all goes into that. Like all these pieces are just kind of like behind the scenes, and all you see at the end of the day is the YouTube stream or the USATF broadcast of the meet. And so curious if you can elaborate at all on what, like now that you've put on some meets, like what all does that entail? Like what are the costs to put on an event like that? So like what do you have to bring in just even break even on an event like that? And then how do you get to the point where it's, you know, you're making it profitable so that you do have money to then disperse to athletes as prize money or, you know, appearance fees or whatever that is?
Yeah, it really depends, because there's quite a few different scales of the whole thing. So there's the smallest version of it, and then there's the biggest version of it. And so your costs are your production costs. Now, if you decide to hire that out or to contract that out to Flow Track or Runner Space or whoever, maybe that isn't a cost. Depends. If you take it on yourself, it's a pretty big cost. And then there's the facility rental, which just depends on the facility. It could be $1,000. It could be $20,000 to rent the facility. Timing depends on how big your meet is, how much that costs, but that could be $1,000. It could be $10,000. It just depends on the level you're doing it. Then there's all the just logistical pieces of, like little things like just to take registration, you need some place to do that. You need people's time, and you got to pay people for their time. You need all these volunteers. You need, I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton of things. You have to get a sanction from USATF, which gives you insurance. Or you can get it from NACAC or World Athletics. But if it's in the US, you're getting it from USATF. There's a fee there. There's your prize money, which is over 50% of your cost for the meet is prize money, if not more. So if you do a meet and your goal is just to do a meet, which that's pretty much for the most part what we did during COVID, was we just did a meet, you can pretty much break even if you don't offer prize money. And sadly, that happens a lot. I felt bad. I was like, we did a meet in August, and we did the December meet, and we didn't do prize money. And I felt horrible. I was like, we shouldn't be having these meets if we can't do prize money. Athletes felt differently because they just wanted to race.
Yeah.
And for some of them, they made money because they hit bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of them wanted to race to hit their bonuses, or they wanted their Olympic trials standard or whatever, which got them a bonus or gets them to the trials, maybe got them re-signed. So there's value in there. They are getting something from you. But prize money is by far the biggest cost. And it's what really makes or breaks like the level of your field. But for better or worse, our sport isn't completely contingent on that. I mean, I think if this May track meet didn't have one penny of prize money in it, I think we would have the same fields.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
That shows you like it's kind of broken. We are going to have prize money. We're trying to figure out exactly how much, because it depends on quite a few things. Sponsors and what we end up doing for our broadcast, all those things. But that's kind of where we go back to what are our goals? We want to bring as many people to the event as possible, whether that's in person or online. And we want to put as much money in the hands of the athletes. And then you have to be able to pay yourself somehow in there. And that gets tough, it really does. And so that's why sponsors are so important. And we've been lucky. We've had really good sponsors, even for our smaller races, that helped us pay for things. And then we did some stuff this February and March where we did the Build the Purse stuff, where we allowed fans to basically put it on the fans. We said, hey, we're putting on this meet. It's going to be on YouTube. That costs us money, but that's fine. Put some money in the athlete's hands. And I think the first meet we raised about 10 grand. And we split that between first and second place in both the men's and women's races. So first place got 3,500, second place got 1,500, which is not bad for a 7-person race.
That's good.
Yeah. And then the next meet, we basically end up giving $1,000 to each winner, which just to show you where our sport is, when I sent them the check, all of them were like, oh, I didn't know there's prize money.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them kind of knew about the Build the Purse stuff.
Yeah.
But they're just not actually used to it. And so, I would say those are, the biggest financial piece is the prize money. But the flip side of what's wrong with our sport and the hardest part is where, the Tour de France, they make something crazy. I want to say 80% of their revenue for the Tour de France comes from the broadcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for track right now, we're either putting it on for free, which means it's a sunken cost for the event because it costs a lot to produce it.
Yep.
Even if you do the most basic production ever, it still costs a lot.
Yep.
And you're not really making YouTube money back enough to like,
No.
You're never gonna
production. No.
Yeah. Like,
I'm interested, like, because maybe this is just because we're like already bought into the idea of like, at least personally, we think that the sport has a lot of room that it can grow. And I think there is like this end self-sustaining model that it can get to, but like, what are some of your ideas for getting from here and now to like where it's self-sustaining?
Yeah. So the cool thing that I think when a bunch of the race directors came together during COVID, because I think all of us were like, how are we going to do this? Does anybody know what COVID is, how to test people? Like, we had no idea what we're doing. Yeah. And so we all kind of start sharing ideas and saying, I think we can do a meet, but we're going to do it this way. And we're going to test. And we got calls with USATF. And as we got together, the more we talk, the more we're like, hey, we need to talk more often so that we don't pick like accidentally the same weekends, because we weren't talking. We're all friends, but we weren't talking. Right. And so we don't pick the same weekends. And then we were like, even better, like, we should connect these and make it so that people should go to all these. And so a way to keep it sustainable is these meets already exist. We all have budgets. We all have our own prize money. So that's a great place to start. We're not creating an event out of thin air.
Right.
They have staff. They have fans. They have people that are facilities, timing. It's not like we're going and figuring that out. It already exists. And so that's a great place to start. If you look at like American Track League, all those meets were created out of thin air. Mm-hmm. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. And so, and I know, Paul, like, that's a lot of costs and they have a lot of moving pieces. And so I think that's a good place. And then once you connect all those, you're able to potentially go after sponsors and say, hey, now we're not just selling you this one event. We're selling you these 7 or 8 events, and they're in these cities, and we're going to get these athletes. And here's the value we're going to give you on that. And then can we create a uniform broadcast and storytelling and all the different things that go into, all way easier said than done. But I think getting that sponsorship and actually, once again, making it where these are people's full-time jobs. Like we kept saying, every one of the race directors is pretty much, it's just something they do on the side. Mm-hmm. And we're like, well, that doesn't work. Not if we're really going to do it right. And, or the series itself needs like a head race director or a head PR person or a head content person so that
that's continuity.
Yeah. We're talking about the broadcast, but really what gets people to watch the broadcast is the lead up content.
Right.
Yep. That is not cheap.
Yep.
Lead up, like building out content is not cheap.
Yeah.
There's very few.
We're very aware.
Yeah, we don't all have 10-man interns. So no, that's the thing I keep going back to. I was like, we could have $100,000 and put it all into content creation.
Yeah,
and it would like still just seem like a blip.
Yeah,
right. Right.
Which is a scary thing.
I mean, I think the good part about creating content is like part of, like, you don't have to exactly fund them 100%. Like for funding content, because it exists outside of, like, say there's like a governing body building continuity between these races. Like, I think there, at least in the past year, including ourselves, there's been a lot of newer YouTube or other, like magazines, et cetera, in the track and field world, where they're still making money because people consume their content regardless of being part of this series. So
right. I guess that's what I was going to say too, like building on that, like for like the Texas qualifier, for example, like we just put together like a little sizzle reel. So we sponsored the 1500 meter race there. And we put together like just a sizzle reel introducing the athletes, kind of like a fun, entertaining vibe. And we didn't get paid for it. Like we just did it because we were sponsoring the race. We wanted people to watch the race because we were sponsoring it. And then also, we put it up on YouTube and hopefully grow our user base as well. And so I think there is kind of that opportunity of some of the content creators out there, if it's like dual purpose where they're not only helping you promote a meet, but also they're getting growth in their audience as well as a part of it, or access to athletes or whatever they're kind of getting in return. There's a potential way to not, have the full on production, like cost up front for this whole piece. I mean, if you're doing like a sponsored track series that's multiple meets, like you're going to want to have something more formal than that. Right. But kind of, these one-off meets, for example, like just giving some free reign to maybe some content creators to do it for free, but hopefully it's helping, bring people into the live stream. I I hope we did a decent job of doing that.
You better be careful. Jesse might recruit you for
I'll gladly do it. I thought it was a blast. I think doing stuff like that is fun. And it kind of leads to also like, just, I was thinking about how like it's noble that you want to give, like, basically you're saying any excess money you have hosting a meet, you're like trying to figure out ways to get it back to the athletes and the prize purse and everything. But ultimately also sound running is a business and it's your livelihood. So like you got to make money too. So I'm like, and it is kind of an unfortunate, I guess, place where it is currently, where it's almost like the events are just like breaking even they're just marketing so that you can make money off of other avenues, like, I don't know, like merch or training plans, or it's like for us, it's like, we're investing our time to build content around this meet, and we're just hopefully making money down the road in other avenues just by, the fan base. So I guess there's kind of multiple layers that I just threw at you there, but I'm curious, that kind of how you think about it is like the events are more just about you building your brand and long-term value play on these other areas. Or do you, obviously, hopefully the events become profitable themselves, but is that kind of how you're thinking about it?
Yeah. We do, like, we make sure that, I look at it like we make sure we make money on it, not money like you would think, what you get paid hourly, basic, if you get the hours, but we make sure we make money on all these so that we can keep doing it. Because the worst thing that could happen would be, or not good for the sport, is if, these different groups just have to keep investing and they don't make enough to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm always looking to be like, well, it's okay if we do this or this, as long as we do this thing and we actually make really good money here. And one of the pieces is things like ticket sales, which in 2020, not happening, but maybe the second half of 2021, that's, when you look at all those fixed costs, ticket sales is just an add-on.
Yeah.
Any person that's in those seats, and we were looking at it where we were going to generate a lot of our prize money from ticket sales. Ideally, prize money would come from broadcast and from sponsors and whatever, and then ticket sales would be the revenue piece. But even that, getting people in seats is very, very, very hard, especially for track meets. Like when we used to do the Brooks PR Invitational, we always thought, it's the best high school kids in the entire country racing all at once. Like, this is the coolest thing ever. Everybody's going to show up. And we didn't take that for granted. I was like, no, we're emailing every single coach in the state, and we're going to give them tickets if they want it. And we're going to every club locally, and we're going to talk to them. And we are putting it up on Facebook, and we're taking out an ad buy, and we're doing all this. And we would still 2,500, 3,000 people, which filled the stadium, it looked awesome. It was a great experience. That's 3,000 people, not 10,000.
And you shouldn't have to invest that much just to get that many people. Like you would hope that there'd be enough fans out there that would do it without getting advertised to. They just want to be a part of it.
Yeah, we were essentially going, like, I felt like door to door to get people to show up on that day, because
used car salesman.
we looked at it. I was like, I know that 99% of the people taking this event in are online, but the people that set the budget for the meet and tell me whether I'm doing a good job or whether the meet was successful are going to be at the meet.
Yeah.
And that place needs to be full.
Yep.
And so when we did that, we were like, I'm not taking a chance of this place having 500 people. It's like, we're going to go talk to everybody. And we probably bothered coaches about it, and one of the things, and this is why I keep going back to the value of the sport is, so we had it for free. I think the first 2 or 3 years it was free to get in. And we kind of joked. I was like, when you put a ticket on your, like on your fridge or on the counter and you paid for it, you're not missing that event. You paid for it.
Yeah.
But if it's just free and you could go or not go, you might just on a Saturday afternoon be like,
Mm-hmm.
And so like the third or fourth year, we decided to charge. And it was like $5 or $10. It wasn't much, but it was like $10. And our attendance doubled. And it was because I think it was valuable. They were like, oh, this is a thing. Like it's not just all comers show up. Like we attached a value to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's my only argument. I mean, we just did 2 meets for free on YouTube. And I wasn't against it. I thought that what we were trying to do, it made the most sense. But my problem with that was also like, this is valuable.
Yeah.
And there should, like, we've got to create value. If our sport's free, but every other sport, there's value. I don't like the way that looks. And I'm all for like, let's figure it out. I mean, every single sport there is, it costs to watch. Now, maybe it's like, you have cable, so ESPN and NBC and all these things exist, but you are paying for that. And the cable company, it does go to ESPN and it does get filtered, and so for this to be free, there has to be either like we have 1 million subscribers and it works out on the back end, which, Simmons is way closer to than any of us are. So, I'm not saying that it's not, I don't know the answer. And my biggest problem is that it is like free. I don't like that. I don't like the idea of it being free. Cause I'm like, well, this is valuable. Why is our sport not valuable? Why is it not worth $10 to watch? I know people that don't know anything about MMA, and they'll go in on a fight one week and they'll be like, oh, it's $80. I'll chip in 10.
Yeah. I think that also speaks to like some higher level organization building continuity, because all of the MMA fights, everything in UFC has like a 3-month build up. There's a shitload of content.
Exactly.
There's beef, like there's all this excitement around it. And then there's also like I don't know how, but somehow they I swear they like encourage people to go in on it together and like make it an event for them.
Yeah. They do a better job than anybody about.
Totally.
I don't like MMA. I'm not an MMA fan. It's like maybe a little too violent for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the lead up and I care who wins, but I don't really even want to watch the clip of him winning or her winning because brutal. But I'm consuming all the lead up content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I'm ready for this Jake Paul to get the living crap beat out of him whenever that's happening. I shouldn't even know about that because I'm not going to watch it.
Right.
But they do such a good job. And that's why it makes sense that they got YouTube personalities involved, because those guys know how to bring people in and how to make them care about what they're doing. And track has some pretty cool and unique creators out there. And I would say there's more than I can even count right now. Cause when we start looking at like media credential requests for our event, like you get more of those than we do athletes.
Yeah.
Because everybody now has like, oh, I'm working on this documentary, or I have a channel, or I have this, or I'm a photographer, and which is amazing. But we got to figure out how to take that to more people, and then how to have it funnel all to this one thing, which is the pay-per-view or whatever it is.
I think it's very similar to your conversation with the other race directors. Like, I think that content creators, ourselves included, again, like could do a way better job of collaborating with each other to make sure that like we're all pushing in the same direction. So it's much more of like we're building on top of each other as opposed to like doing way different things and kind of like distracting from the narrative around track and field.
Maybe, but also at the same time, I think part of the problem though is that like what incentive does a top track and field athlete have to work with any content creator? Like they do to some extent, like obviously your social media following, et cetera, plays in, but again, what's going to make you the most money if you do well at the Olympics? And so if I'm the reigning gold medalist, Matt Centrowitz, I do zero podcasts. I do zero any sort of content because why do I have to? You know, I make plenty of money. I won the medal. I'm going to win the next medal, or I'm going to make the next Olympic team. That's all I care about. And so like, sure, we could do a better job coordinating, but really as a content creator in the space that's doing it basically as a side hustle, pro bono, well, yeah, at a loss, you're really just getting who you can get. And it's not so much like I have the option to say, let's build on this Craig Engels storyline. It's like, I'm getting who I can get and that's all I can get, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there's also that piece of it where there's not.
I think there is like kind of similar to charging for viewership. I think there is like money missing, but I guess to your point of like, why would people speak to media? Like look at like Sit and Kick just announced that they were like paying everybody who appears on the podcast, which I think is like a net good thing. But the question is, how does that become sustainable? Like, I think eventually it is a self-sustaining piece of the sport, but it's getting
it's only self-sustaining if if they get enough listeners that then they get a sponsor that then covers it is like the only way to make it self-sustaining. So basically you need to build your overall audience in order to get sponsors interested, but you also need to get enough sponsors interested to make enough money to be able to build the audience to have good content. So it is just like a iterative process of you kind of got to chip away at it, you know, a little bit at a time. And I wanted to bring up that you talked about like the free stream being a bad thing. And I think that, I mean, I agree with that in that if everyone expects something to be free, they're never going to want to pay for it, whether it's in person or, you know, paying for it online. And I think there's a lot of what, at least what I hear in track and field now, like kind of the younger people, the content creator side is like, the sport should be free. Like the sport would be so much better if it was just free access. But then that doesn't really make sense to me. And there's also just tons of hate on FlowTrack out there too, on like, they have paywalls, they do this, they do that. But I don't know, I guess from my side, I see where, maybe it's a barrier to some people watching it, but also like the reason FlowTrack has to have a paywall and make money is because they have to pay a lot of money to produce events. And so what's their incentive to produce events and do a good quality job if they're not making money to support that? And so I also completely understand and like personally would be willing to pay a subscription to event coverage as a part of that. Now, I mean, you know, everyone has their different thoughts on FlowTrack, but I guess going into that piece of it, maybe a little bit more like, how do you feel about all this like hatred on FlowTrack that seems to be out there? And then also like there's been a ton of praise about the recent meets being free on YouTube, like Trials and Miles. But again, like, is that sustainable longer term to be able to do that? Is that really what the right move is for the sport?
Well, so two parts real quick. I would say, no, it's not sustainable. Costs a lot of money. So you can do that a couple times. You can get sponsors in, but you're not going to go anywhere with it. You're not going to get, there's versions of it. Free though will never really work. I truly believe that because
free is also a loaded term too.
You need money from somewhere.
Yep.
Even if you look at the language we used leading up to the 10 and the sound running invite, we never said the word free. I was adamant. I was like, it's on YouTube. Everybody knows it's free, but I'm not going to ever say the word free ever. Yeah. And I think I learned that at Brooks. Like we never discounted our stuff. We've always wanted to be premium. And I would say, so that's that piece about, I don't think it's sustainable. Now, the FlowTrack runner space, it's crazy to me that they're getting crap for a paywall. We get to watch it. Like, the new normal is that every single event you ever want to see, you can watch now. Mm-hmm. That is because of them.
Yep.
Like, it started because of them. They've built this infrastructure now. They're doing a lot of things, and they do have fixed costs, and they have become bigger companies. When I started working with FlowTrack at Brooks, they had 3 people.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many they have now, a couple hundred. And they're obviously a much bigger entity, and they're to be nimble and to like make the 16-year-old happy. Like, maybe they don't move as quick as they did probably then at hearing people and reacting. But I would say the reason that now the new norm is there's not a meet out there that's not online somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
And it's because of FlowTrack and Runner Space. They made it normal. They showed up to everything. I mean, for years it was like Ross, at Runner Space showing up on his own, or it was Mark Floriani showing up at his own, and they were filming it themselves for 8 hours at the Texas State meet or the Washington State, whatever it was. And so we owe them so much. Now I have some events that are with FlowTrack, and then we also have some events we're doing differently. And like I said, that's an effort just to try different stuff. And we have stuff that we're going to announce in the next couple of weeks that I think is steps to trying to do something different. But everything that's out there right now, think about like even just the Cribs series that they did with athletes and the Workout Wednesdays, they started all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're able to watch all these USATF road races because of Runner Space. And I mean, getting USATF on board, I mean, even USATF had to say, oh, what you guys are doing is so valuable, like we're going to get involved. And I don't see the hate. I see maybe thinking, and maybe there's something better. And that's okay. Thinking there's something better is totally everybody's prerogative, but hating on them kills me. I'm like, guys, these guys are, running the sport for the last decade. And, but it's what we're doing with the free stuff. It's really cool. And I think kudos to everybody for doing it. 'Cause like the City of Central's Miles group in Austin, like that was a great production. It cost a lot. Yeah. And to do that a couple more times, like you can bring in sponsors and break even. But what we're really trying to do is we don't want to break even. We want not only 50 to 100K in prize money at each meet or more, but we want like a full-time staff where now we're creating content, we're doing all these things. And so that just takes more, like we can't do that and have it be for free. But while we're figuring it out, free's, it is what it is. Like that's what we're doing. Right. Yeah. So I don't know. There's no right answer, but I do think that those are the problems we're up against.
I think as somebody who's like more on the, or at least like in some recent times, I've been more on like the free side, but like I'm sort of on the fence / like a convert. I think what people are really missing from like, I guess like they're misinterpreting the value of FlowTrack, Runner Space, et cetera, because we look at other sports and granted those aren't free. And I think from my own perspective, what I see is there's like this little sliver of value on top, which is the narrative, like this continuous series across a season, yada, yada, yada. Like there's all these side avenues for different types of content to like spawn out of that. And what I think people are missing is we don't have a very well articulated version of that in running. Like if FlowTrack if they broadcasted if they put on a deal with Sound Running and they had every single meet broadcasted, you just bought like a 7-meet subscription, and then there was content around that, I don't think people would complain at all that it wasn't free.
Yeah. And maybe that's something you'll see in the future. I think I would say, like, I mean, I went to go watch NCAAs a couple weeks ago, and I went to go pay the ESPN Plus, whatever, and I couldn't watch it because you also needed cable. And I was so mad. Throwing my computer off the roof. I was so mad. Yeah. And I was like, well, this should be easy. How is this a thing? And so I get people get frustrated because there's paywalls here and there. And for me, it's complete not money thing. It's a laziness thing. I just want to be able to just watch it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the ESPN thing, I was like, I just want to watch it.
Like, I'll give you the money, but like, stop making it a pain in the ass.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been on the fence. The free stuff, like, I liked it, but I like it for the laziness in my personality, but I don't like it for the value of the sport.
Yeah.
And not that I don't see why it's happening. I know why it's happening, and I know why we did it, but I don't think it's overall the direction, because my biggest argument is the more money that's in our sport, the better our sport and the bigger our sport will be.
Right.
In every other sport, they get the majority of the revenue from the broadcast.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, that's the one thing that I'm like, we have to figure this out, because every other sport, that's where they're getting all their money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's where we're saying, oh, no, that's free. And
we're already an underfunded sport as is.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty backwards, but I do agree that, like, maybe it's the loud minority, because you hear like this fodder online of like,
yeah, of course,
free. And it seems like more people than I think it is.
That's probably true. That's probably true. I mean, I guess, yeah, my saying that is me listening to other running podcasts or seeing, certain like running Insta accounts, whoever it is. Like, you have a few of the bigger players in a given area, like a few bigger podcasts, and a couple, like they'll mention that I hate FlowTrack for this reason. And then you just kind of think, oh, everyone hates FlowTrack. But in reality, like you said, I mean, before, could you watch your 12-year-old kid at the AAU championships, like as a parent or a cousin or a relative? Like, you could never do that before Runner Space or FlowTrack. So
you couldn't even watch, any of these professional meets, the Portland Track Festival, or you couldn't watch a Texas State meet, or you couldn't watch Big 12 track, and all of these things came from that, to the point to where now all those are like really valuable pieces of, kind of broadcast property that people are battling for now, but which is a good thing. That's what we want, but, and FlowTrack will pay. I mean, people do, FlowTrack and Runner Space, they pay for these events. Yeah. So they're putting money into the sport one way or another. Now, are we at the NBC Olympic contract level? No, but could we get there? Like, if the content is valuable enough, if whoever it is thinks they're going to, I mean, why does Netflix pay, whatever they pay for a movie or a show? It's because they think they're going to get that many more subscribers because of it. Mm-hmm. And if Runner Space or FlowTrack thinks whatever we're doing is going to bring them more subscribers, they'll pay. And they'll pay probably something pretty nice. But it's just going to, like, it's a chicken and egg.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Of course.
The value, and we have to, and they have to bet on it. And so, I think, maybe, I hope it's a small minority of people that are just really loud on social media.
Yeah, I think the silver lining is they have similar ideas around growing the sport, but I think theirs is viewership first, athletes second, and finally actually paying folks like yourself, which is, I think it's just a difference in terms of prioritization of where the money's going. Yeah,
the organizations have to be big enough. If you think about when I think of subscription, I think of Netflix, and I think that, okay, the movie gets paid 40 million to get exclusively put on Netflix. I'm throwing numbers out there. But that trickles down where like each actor got paid, whatever they got paid to do the movie because it was enough money. But all of that is because the value was high enough to do that. And so I think that if we put on a series or an event that's so valuable, I'm just going to make up a number. Let's say FlowTrack paid us $1 million to do the series. Well, we could have a staff, we could pay event costs, and we could put $100,000 into each meet, and then people in the prize money would be deep and it would be really good. Yeah. And so that money would funnel down. So I would say the hierarchy exists, but the numbers are just really small right now. And so now if you get paid to do an event, it's small enough that like, even if you transfer 100% of that down to the athletes, it's really small. It's not negligible. And so we have to create something valuable enough for them to give us, more money. And so they have a system set up, and I know they know the numbers of, there's all these people complaining about subscriptions, but I guarantee they wouldn't do it if it wasn't making money.
Of course.
And so it must be working.
Right. Well, otherwise they're
like the Netflix,
because they would go out of business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to have the big fish at the top that's willing to take the financial risk up front in order to get the payday. The payday down the line. Like a FlowTrack puts the $1 million up front because they can afford the risk, and then they'll hopefully recoup the money down the line. But then that way you get to disperse money to athletes, you get to hire your team, all of those pieces as well. It sounds like you need either a bank to just give you like a couple $1 million loan, or you need Nick Simmons's YouTube channel to stream it so that when you have 200,000 people watching the meet at once and you're making ad money on all of them, then you got your production costs covered. I think those are the two best options for you.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is like it's there. It's there, and I think that's the sport is not broken in that respect. I think it can happen.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's so broken that we can't do it. But the whole other piece of outside of the broadcast is all the other sports have a really simple beginning and end. And it's one game. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not 15 events, all different outcomes, all different metrics. It's one game.
Yeah.
And track is really, really hard because it's all these different events that kind of appeal to different people, which should be good in a way, but some of them are so different than others. Like a good example is, being at these races and then the 10K starts and the crowd just leaves, right?
Yeah.
Or just the fact that different people, like at the Texas Stadium is one of the craziest, most awesome track meets because they'll have like 30,000 people in that stadium every day. Mm-hmm. And the event, people come for different events. Mm-hmm. And how do you do that? How do you package that all together?
Right.
And some events are better on TV than others. And some races are better for TV than others, mm-hmm. And how do you package that? And that's the piece that you need some really creative person out there, or we might have to chop up track and field to a point that people won't be happy about.
Right. Yeah.
Think about long jump and triple jump. I went to Rio and I was watching the men's long jump, and it was happening on the other side of the so I was like third row, where if I was on the other side of the stadium, I'd have front row to triple jump or long, but it was happening on the other side of the stadium. And if you're watching triple jump or long jump or any of those things close up, it's the most amazing thing ever.
It's insane.
If you're watching it across the stadium, you get no real relevance or whatever to what's happening.
Yeah.
And so how do we deal with that? And same with high jump or any of those events, like how do we really show how unbelievable it is? And how do we package that all into like 2 hours or 2.5 hours where like there's a beginning and an end?
Right. For sure.
And how do you make fans out of that without like, oh, the one person I follow is not competing, I'm not watching today.
For sure. Yeah.
Is it teams? Do we have to just separate events? Is it like sprints, distance, field events, and they're like separate broadcasts?
Mm-hmm.
Is it, and I don't know any of those things, but I feel like that's one of our bigger problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally, my thought is that the team piece would be huge. Like if you had like a distance runner and a shot putter and a triple jumper that are all like, this is like the Brooks team, and they're taking on the Bowerman team that has also the same people in the same events. And it's like each place matters. It's a sum of those scores across those events. Like that would be way more entertaining. There's stakes on every individual event as well as the event as a whole at the team level. And one thing that I thought was really cool, and I don't know if they still do this, but like the Drake Relays, I grew up in Iowa, the Drake Relays, they did have some one-off events. And I guess they've done this like Usain Bolt's run races that are like staged, not on a track, but like they had the pole vault like in the mall in Des Moines as its own event. And it's like, when you're in the mall hallway or whatever, and you're right up front and center looking up at this pole vault, you realize how insane it is, how high they're getting. And so that kind of that close atmosphere, but also the one-off events can be really hyped up in a way that does work. Now translating that to like how many people are going to tune into a stream that's only pole vaulting, I don't know. Like that's where it gets maybe a little trickier, but there is something to be said for that, where like giving justice to the couple of events that you're trying to tell the story around in a given day. There's a way to do it. There's a way to package it, but it's tough to do in a way that it makes economical sense as well for the person producing it to break out all these pieces. But I personally would just love to see teams. I would love to see rivalries, teams, whether it's, distance versus distance or like at the full level, just like in high school, you stick around the end of the meet to watch the 4x4 because your high school team's racing the other high school team. It could be the same thing potentially in track as well. And I think that would be a lot more fun.
One of the things we're trying to do with the track series is, so there's this overall point total, and it's across all events, genders, everything. So you could be, what we try to do is every event is represented 4 times in the series, and we're going to take your 3 highest kind of points, your scores on the IAAF table or World Athletics table. And so you could get to, and you can look at it as real time, we'll always update it, but you get to the last meet of the year and you're like, well, Shelby Houlihan just won the 1500. She's in first, but Joe Kovacs, if he throws this far in his next throw, he actually will leapfrog her.
Yeah.
Oh, and Christian Taylor, he still has 2 jumps left. And if he does X or Y or whatever, he moved like, so
it's like articulating those scenarios. I think it's really akin to like people who pay attention to prop bets for football. Like there are certain channels where you have like all these possible scenarios, and that's what makes, for people who don't know how far is a good triple jump. I don't know. All I know is I need this person to jump this far in order for like this to pay off for me. So
exactly. You have your own betting, and then also like that person, like you said, if it's like Shelby against Kovacs, it's like the winner of this is taking home $100,000. So there's like big stakes on it. So then everyone's getting like super excited about it. Like who's going to get this $100,000? It's going to change their life. Absolutely. There's a lot you can do there. If there's money, there's a lot you can do there.
There's money, and then they're interacting, and like there's a reason to watch. If you're a distance fan, there's a reason to watch maybe the shot put, because now it's all relevant, and maybe before, maybe you didn't really watch the shot put closely, but now you are. You talked about the betting part, and I think track's probably like the easiest thing in the world to bet on.
Yeah.
We haven't seen much of it. I know here in California, I'm just waiting patiently for them to, because on the day that they do that, we will have full on betting at all of my meets. Because But California, it ain't happening for a while.
I pissed away my entire weekend last weekend because I was just researching all of the gambling laws across the states, and it's come a long way in the last couple of years, but it's got a ways to go, especially in places like California.
Yeah, I thought that because of COVID, it actually got put on the November. I thought it got put on the November docket for like voting, but I don't know if it got what happened, but it obviously it's not happening. But because of COVID and because of the loss in revenue and all these things, like it kind of jumped up 2 or 3 years. So I thought it was going to be 4 or 5 years. And now I think like in the next 2 years it'll happen, but that's still pretty slow.
Right.
Yeah.
And you still have to take into consideration betting across state lines, and it's kind of a shit show.
It's complicated. But
it can happen because there are tons of businesses that do it for other sports. Mm-hmm. So it's in the realm of possibility, I think. Yeah.
And I think it'll be really big for the sport because you want to talk about something that could bring random people in to watch.
Bingo.
Yeah, for sure.
Gambling money,
or something. Yep. I mean, that's one. It's like being such a statistic driven sport like track and field. It's a pro and con, and one of the major pros is people love betting on something that's statistics driven.
Yeah.
We went to the trials. I don't remember which year it was, and there was a couple guys that I work with who. They're not really track guys, but they worked at Brooks, and they were like, "Hey, I want to go to the trials. This sounds awesome." And there were about 3 or 4 of us were track guys, maybe 2 or 3 weren't. And we played this game, whether we should or not, I guess. We did dollar bets, and it was first and last.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
And it was so fun because not that you ever want somebody to get last. But being right about who got last was almost more fun than being right about who got first. And we did it in every race. Didn't matter if it was a heat, a final, 100, a 10K, didn't matter. And you had to pick. And whatever down the line you were, you got, either the first pick or you got the last pick. And it was so much fun. And the guys who were not big track fans were so into it. And I wouldn't say the people that knew a lot about track did any better than the people that didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So that's also really cool.
It's also super cool because usually you do just focus at the front of the race too. So now you're also like looking at the entire field and like really trying to analyze and like caring about who's kicking who down at the back of the field, which is like, I never really thought about that because most of the time you're just betting on first, second, third in most events. So
it was the only time I've ever done that. And I always think about it because I think of, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And I cared about every single race.
Yeah.
So betting will definitely help.
For sure. If we get the organization that runs the sports books, so they're siphoning off their fees, if they're affiliated with the track series, so those fees can just funnel back to the athletes, that'd be a great setup.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of money to be made there. So somebody that, knows programming and knows the laws to get to work.
Okay, let's close out with a couple more lighthearted things here. I got a couple listed. So one, I guess this was you. You saw a tweet that said, "Fact: running weeks start on Sunday."
Ooh, yeah.
I disagree, but I want to hear your reasoning before I.
So I have tons of friends, and we go back and forth on this all the time. And so I just thought about like how I build my week, and I've always been Sunday to Saturday. And so I don't know, I just randomly threw that out there, but it was a point of contention for sure. People were like legitimately mad at me. And the one thing that I'll say, and I truly believe this, is that's how I grew up. My coach set up our weeks that way. But if you look at the Garmin Strava generation, they are set up Monday to Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so I really think it's actually like where you are in like where you started.
Yeah.
And so if you're maybe under 30, you're like, this guy's insane. But if you grew up when I grew up, it's like, but I also go back to this. Pull up your iPhone, look at the calendar on your iPhone, look at every single calendar that's ever been made and printed.
True.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, Sunday is the first day of the week.
Here's the weird thing. I use Strava now. I only started a year ago because I was really big about not tracking my mileage. I didn't like to, but during the pandemic, I kind of wanted like a blueprint of like what I did. And so it bothers me because I'm Sunday to Saturday, but every time I look at this thing, it's telling me Monday. And so I'm like, wait, 30, what am I at? I'm like,
what do I have to run?
Yeah. And I'm like, it's OCD when you're like not following what's in front of you. You have your own. Yeah.
It's funny you mention that because I maybe I'm delusional, but I swear Garmin used to give you the option to specify like when you started.
They might. I feel like they do.
I think it's buried in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I want to say that I've seen that, but I realized I was like, well, I'm arguing with people that have like only ever lived on Strava, and they probably do think I'm insane. But that was the way we set up our weeks.
If I were to do long runs on Sundays, then I think I would start my week on Sunday. But because I do long runs on Saturdays and just because I guess it still would make, that's not a good argument because I guess Saturday long run still makes sense starting Sunday because then you end your week with a long run. But I think it's more for me like my work week starts on Monday, my week starts on Monday. Sure. I don't know what it is, but
it's not like it's whatever you're used to. And so I've been doing it forever where the one thing I do like is I don't make my long run. Like people will get to the end of the week and they're like, well, I need 18 today, or I need 15 or whatever. I do the long run that I need to do or that I should be doing. Right. And my week just kind of, now granted, I might get to Saturday and I might take a 5 mile day because I hit my mileage or whatever. So I guess I still do it on the backside, but I would always hear about people like doing these crazy long runs, hit their mileage.
Yeah, you're like, oh shit. Yeah, that's my like the one inkling I have to being okay with starting my week on Sunday. Cause I hate getting to Sunday and being like, wow, not only do I have to run like an extra mile or two, but I still have to do a workout and I have to start my next training week like feeling like shit.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Definitely though, I was blown away at like how contentious it was.
Yeah.
Like people were mad. They were like, you don't know anything about running. They were like, there were people that discredited my whole life because I put that out there.
Gosh.
And it was so entertaining. Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, whatever you're used to, it shouldn't really matter, but it's funny. All right. One other fun one here. So between your time at Brooks and starting Sound Running, you took basically a year off sabbatical. I'm actually taking a sabbatical for 3 months this summer, get my first break from work, since starting my career, however many years ago now. I can't remember how long ago I graduated, but any tips or things that you would recommend that I make sure to do during this sabbatical time? Or do you recommend I absolutely just don't worry about doing anything and really, really take a reset here?
Well, I would say reset for sure. I mean, I reset to the point where I was like worried that I couldn't ever really work. I was like, I would see people walking in suits like at lunch and I was like, I don't know how these people work. I was like out. But the one thing that, and I'm sure you guys like you're motivated people and I thought that my job and what I did, I thought that if I left for a day, it would all fall to pieces. And then I thought it was all contingent on me and whether I was tethered to my phone or tethered to my email, which I was 24/7. Mm-hmm. I thought, none of this works without me. And I also thought this whole world that I'm so enthralled with is all there is. Those two things changed drastically when I took a sabbatical because right away you realize things go on without you. You're not that important. Like your job will be there. Somebody else will do it. They'll do fine. Everything will work. And you also realize, man, I was so obsessed with like certain things that were happening in the sport.
Yeah.
And I got so either happy or upset about things that happened. And like 1 month in, I was like, I don't know why I cared about that. And I was like, I cannot believe that I like would lose sleep over this, which now I don't even look at or don't care about. And so it's a really good refresh for the fact that like, I mean, here I am back in the sport and trying to do things, but I feel like from a very different angle and with a different mindset. But as soon as you take that sabbatical, I feel like if you do it right, you'll come out of it going, okay, there's so much more out here. I'm focused on like this tiny little piece of the world that I think everything is focused on. And I came down here and I met people, and like, they didn't know what Brooks was. They didn't know there was such thing as professional track athletes. They didn't know, like, even now when I say like, oh, we do these events and we do this, and they're like, what? So it gives you perspective, and it hopefully makes you, reinvigorated in what you're doing and, whatever. But for me, it was like eye-opening in terms of like, oh, I don't have to look at my email 24/7. So I didn't put email back on my phone until like somewhat recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have like rules about it.
Yeah.
But I was like, like everybody, I'm like constantly looking at my email. So it changed a couple habits too, bad habits.
Yeah.
Which, if you're like I guess, go-getter kind of competitive person, whether it's in the workplace or whatever, it's, you get in those bad habits.
Definitely.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I mean, that's exactly what I'm hoping to get out of it, is basically a step back in perspective, as well as just like remembering what it's like to not be in a constant state of like distraction / a million things going on, whatever. And just like getting away from that for a little bit. So definitely aligned with what you're saying there.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. What are you going to do?
I am going to, with my wife, we actually both got a sabbatical for 3 months, and we are going to we got Airbnbs in the mountains in Colorado's, and I'm just going to run and trail run and keep the podcast going, but that's fun. So that's not stressful, but literally just get up every morning, look at the mountains, drink coffee, and then go for a trail run, and then see where the day takes me. That's pretty much it.
Go back.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, I feel like there's going to be some major like animosity when I'm still working and like I just see all your fucking Snapchats.
Yeah, it's gonna be hanging out.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I have to be I on purpose probably once a week, and I don't really post that often on Instagram or anything, but once a week I'll put a post up and I make sure to put like the temperature, because I want all my friends to be like, it's 75 there right now. and it's completely to like get it I'm ready for like all those texts to come through. They're like, you asshole.
Yeah.
I do that about once a week just to remind everybody.
That's great. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that daily. You're going to get it daily, not weekly.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Every day it's going to be like 70 in the mountains. I'm just going to be enjoying the mountain air. It's going to be great. Yeah.
Went for a run today. Took a 3-hour nap. Yep.
Exactly.
That's
Awesome. Well, anything else that you want to plug? Words of wisdom. I guess you gave us a lot of words of wisdom already. So anything else that you want to plug, or I guess besides tuning in to the Sound Running meets in May, in July. I mean, obviously those are big ones. Following Sound Running on Instagram to make sure that people are getting the latest and greatest on updates. Anything else?
I would say like there's a lot of big stuff coming this summer. I think we have some cool announcements. I always think like things are really good if you're like nervous about them, because if you're not nervous, it's like not challenging. It's not big enough. So there's some big stuff coming up, and our May event looks really, really like it looks awesome. And so we will, as the month goes on, start announcing who's running, and our goal is to have 2 or 3 weeks of like build up. So we're trying to close registration down early so that we can say, hey, look who's racing, and then have plenty of time to talk about it. Track and field's there's still a lot of people that are last second. And I think that's part of it also. It's hard to follow because people don't know who's racing who or when. So we're going to try to do that. So that's probably the next biggest thing. Follow along and go get that vaccine so we can, get life back online here and see everybody in Eugene.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, guys, it's appreciated a lot. This is great.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. We just had a great discussion with Jesse, and we actually had a lot of fun talking to him after we finished recording as well. He's got a lot of insights in the sport, and I learned a lot this episode, I must say.
Yeah, I think I'm much more optimistic generally about track and field after that conversation.
I'm with you.
I feel good.
I'm with you. Very excited to see the Sound Running meets in May. A lot of Olympic trials times, probably Olympic standards as well. Who knows? Maybe even an American record or two. Like it's going to be hype. It's going to be available to watch online. And so get excited for that. Yeah.
As Jesse said, stay tuned. Follow them on Instagram. I know they're releasing some pretty big news in the next couple weeks. So check it out.
All right. So let's get into, as we usually do, the beer of the week. And again, this is courtesy of Ryan in Wisconsin, Fifth Ward Brewing Company. This is the second of 3 beers that he sent us from Fifth Ward. We got the Coleman Crocus Honey Saffron Wheat Ale. That's awesome. It's a cool name. I just love that this is like such a unique combo of things. Honey and saffron in a wheat ale. Like I just don't know what to expect.
What is saffron like? Does that have a taste?
It's definitely
like
a taste,
a spice that
but
you cook
I
with?
couldn't tell you like what it is. But yes, it is a spice that you cook with. So
how obvious?
Hold my mic. I gotta open this.
How obvious is it that we're white? If I don't know if that's a spice or not. White people don't use spices.
What are you talking about?
Like all they know is salt and pepper. You know.
That's
Wait,
what,
you
that's
just
a white people thing?
Pour your jobby. Jesus,
Have it. Sorry for those listening to the audio. I accidentally just took a drink out of the bottle instead of pouring it first, just out of habit.
It's a good thing we had to get COVID tests before this for traveling to meets because
Adam doesn't trust me.
Yeah, you're dirty.
Okay. It's a beautiful color. I mean, first of all, X Factor, like
nice
perfect
head.
color. And I poured a great head.
It's good. Yeah, it's a good pour.
All right.
Dude, hot take, people who, you know how some people like pour it to where it doesn't make any foam? Fucking hate it when they do that.
It's got to be a little bit of foam. Well, it's dependent on the beer type. Some beer types you want like third head or third of it's a head. Some beers you want just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm always a fan of having
big head guy. Yeah.
I thought you knew where I was going with that. I knew where you were going with it. I was trying to talk you out of going there, but you went there anyway. So, hey, that's okay. There's no filters on this podcast. Give it a taste.
That's a lot like for a wheat beer, that's a lot less I don't know. Has a lot less like kick than I would think for a wheat beer.
Less kick. Do wheat beers have kick?
It tastes like it doesn't taste flat. I'm trying to find the words to like describe.
There wasn't much head on it, that's for sure. So okay, we
still need a brewmaster on the show.
We do need a brewmaster on the show. That needs to come soon. But so my first hot take, and I don't know if this is. So we had the APA in last episode, and the APA, I would say it would like. Regardless of what you think of the taste, like APA is typically less drinkable than wheats. As far as like you don't want to drink as many. I don't know. Maybe that's my own opinion. But what I was going to say was this, because of the flavors, the honey and the saffron, I would say this is much less drinkable than the APA from last episode.
Let's rate it. Drinkability out of 10.
Let me get one more sip.
I think we rated, probably have to go back. I think we rated it
like an
8 or
I think
9.
we rated it an 8. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'll
3,
go
2, 1.
7
8.
heaven.
Yeah. I think it's close. My X factor for the drinkability is I think this is a beer that after the second beer, the honey and saffron would like throw you less of a curveball after beer number 2.
So it's like an acquired taste?
Yeah, you would adjust to it and be like, wow, this is really good.
That could be. Yeah, that could be.
Because it doesn't have any like offsetting qualities for the drinkability, if that makes sense.
I see what you mean.
Like especially with APAs or IPAs, you're like, yeah, this tastes good, but it's not something that I could have more than 1 or 2 of. Whereas this, like, I feel like I could make it to 4, and then by then you're like, I'm just gonna have it for the rest of the night.
I think I'm with you on that. I would agree. This, I'm still trying to like figure out in my palate like the differentiating the honey and the saffron.
I was just gonna say the same thing. I was like,
it definitely tastes unique. I just can't really like
it's not quite just honey, and I don't know what saffron tastes, but I guess that's it.
I need to have like a smell of saffron on the side to like know what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You know?
Jax, go get us some saffron.
Let me order the Instacart real quick.
Okay, let's rate taste then.
Taste, okay. Get one more.
All right, are you ready?
I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, 9.
7.
Okay.
I'll just go 7 again. I mean, I know it's like the safe thing. I would say so. I would absolutely.
I think it pops off.
Absolutely, if I was at a brewery, like no hesitations ordering this, you know, maybe ordering a couple. Like, and if I saw this on the menu, I would absolutely, like, I would go for wheats off in anyway.
True.
The honey I just don't know if I like the saffron. I just don't know if I do yet. I don't dislike it. I just don't know if I like it.
Yeah, I think so. Like the reason I rated it a 9, I don't know if it's my favorite. Like it's not a 10. But it's different enough to where it's like recognizable and it's still pretty darn good. Oh, I'm kind of excited that I get like another little
top off
sample
here.
glass.
I don't know. There's something about drinking this out of this little sampler glass.
I love these
We're
things.
so fancy.
We need to get like 5-ounce samplers with our logo on them.
We could definitely. That's easy.
Let us know if you would want those too.
Yeah. Little variety pack.
Ooh, a fucking beer mile flight.
Beer mile flight would be really cool. Yeah, and then you get the wood piece for underneath, and it's like engraved or something. It'd be awesome.
I'd pop off. That's
good.
Get
it engraved with like your beer mile PR.
Ooh.
No,
we can like sign those. Actually, I don't have a good signature. Do you have a good signature?
No, nobody wants our signatures.
Yeah,
that's lame.
Bunch of scribbles.
We could get someone legit to sign them, maybe.
Oh, okay. Quick shout out to our man's Ray. I don't know if I can say
Ray. Okay.
Oh, I don't know if we can dox him. You know, say his full name. I thought we were supposed to say like their name and then the state.
Okay. So what about him? What do you want to shout him out for?
Oh, so
I don't think you revealed too much. I think you're okay.
Yeah, sure. So I want to give Ray a shout out because he won the NCAA bracket for sit and kick. And Josh and Dave were like trying to figure out because they got their asses whooped by like 60 people. They're like, okay, so like, what do we give away to the winners because we like lost a lot, so we don't want to spend like a lot of money, but we got to like figure out what to give people. And I commented something along the lines of like, Josh has to give us a signed 6-pack.
A Blue Moon, yeah.
And Ray was like, oh yeah, like as the winner, like I endorse this punishment.
Thanks for backing us, Ray.
So, he's an OG fan too.
Oh yeah, big Tank 7 guy.
Oh,
at least that's what he sends us in the images, the stories. I don't know if he learned Tank. I can't remember if he learned Tank 7 from us or if he was already a Tank 7 fan. I'd have to go back and look, but
either way, I want more.
He's got
Tank
good
7.
taste. Absolute good taste. Well, I mean, we'll get some more of that in Kansas City when we go.
True.
We do have some cool things. I guess we can say that really quick. You know, some cool things coming up. I think we're going to be able to hit up the Drake relays. April 23rd, 24th, I believe are the dates.
Do we say like check out, like hang on for a podcast with us and some familiar faces maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a couple things. One, I would say if you happen to be in Des Moines and you're a listener of ours and you want to hang out for a podcast recording or just to hang out in general, go for a run with us, let us know. And also it would be cool if we could get athletes. We know all the athletes also listen to this podcast. If one of you wants to do a live podcast with us after the race, let us know. And maybe we could also get like some listeners to watch it live.
That'd be pressure's on.
Pressure's on. So once we get the start lists for Drake, we'll have to see if there's any names on there of athletes that we know we could get on. But yeah, either way, Drake Relays, planning to be in Des Moines, April 23rd, 24th. Let us know if you're there. And then the following week, the next Trials of Miles Sidious Mag production is in Kansas City. So we will be there for that as well.
Yeah, that'll be spicy. For our longtime listeners, you might know that last time I was in Kansas City, I might have had some trouble with some Ruhifnol. So hopefully everything.
And by trouble, he doesn't mean that he had trouble sliding it into someone else's drink.
Jesus Christ. No, I'm what they call an easy target. So hopefully,
you can never let your guard down. That's your first mistake.
Allegedly, that was my mistake. I've only made it 1.5 times at this point. So, I'm going to have a babysitter and I'm going to be always keeping my thumb over my beer bottle when I'm drinking.
Just never leave a beer bottle not finished. So every time you get a drink, you have to chug it.
Well, not that you have to chug it, just like never set it down. It's interesting because I was actually, when I was talking to my sister about this and she's like, oh, that's just like, as a girl, like I just like don't set my drink down. And I was like, that's how you know you're a dude.
Yeah. Well, you got to start thinking about that. So Kansas City, if you're also there and you want to, meet up for a run, meet up for a beer. I don't even know what else. I mean, Adam and I have to get tested a couple times in order to even go to Kansas City. So, I mean, I think we're going to be pretty safe to
don't give us
have
COVID.
A beer, and we'll have a beer outside
outdoors
somewhere. Out on the patio. It'll be a good time.
Yeah, the weather will be nice. So
maybe we can get someone to do a live podcast there as well. We'll see. I don't know if we're that cool yet, but we're going to certainly try. I think we're also going to host the official pre-race party there on the Friday night too.
Yeah, it's turning into something. So turning
into something. We don't know what yet, but it's going to be something. We can promise you there will be something.
At this point, we're just scheming, but like it's kind of legitimate scheme. So
it's a legitimate scheme. Know. Yeah. All right. So any other thoughts about this beer before we close her out?
Still can't decide whether it's honey or I don't know where the honey begins, ends, and where the saffron begins and ends.
Yes.
It's confusing.
I'm confused too. I think it's probably one where I would need to have it a few different occasions and then truly decide whether I love it or whether I just like it.
Yeah, I wanna have this next to like a standard wheat and compare like what the difference is between,
or even just a standard honey wheat.
Sure.
Like, not that honey wheats are standard, but like another honey wheat just to get a side by side. But either way, super smooth. Like just it goes down extremely smooth.
I'm telling you, that's the 2 beer X factor, where you get to 2 beers and you're like, whoops, I think I like this beer.
I think that could be the case with this one. So we got a couple more in the fridge. Again, thanks to Ryan from Wisconsin. So we'll find out, I guess, when we have those other couple, when we're hanging out. Yeah. We'll see if
put it on the Instagram, so Chris doesn't drink them without me.
That's right. I put the one on the Instagram. On my personal Instagram yesterday, drinking one of them. So
yeah. And if you're a listener that you love a specific type of beer that we haven't reviewed, feel free to hit us up in the DMs and figure out how you ship that bad boy to us. Or do we just like put our address in and have people ship us random shit? Don't mail us a bomb.
If you ask us for our address, we'll definitely give it to you, but we're not going to like publicly put it somewhere.
Yeah. I think Ted Kaczynski, he knew some things,
Is that right?
The Unabomber, the Unabomber.
Yeah, I know. Anywho, just for beers of the week for the next couple weeks, we have one more from Ryan from the Fifth Ward Brewing, and then we got thank you to Colin in California. Colin Goss, he gave us a vanilla cream ale that he also thinks would be like the ideal beer mile beer.
Ooh.
Assuming it would come in bottles. It's in cans. Okay. But so he wants us to not only evaluate the taste of it, but also evaluate its ability in the beer mile.
Okay.
So those are our next 2 coming up. Next 2 episodes will be last Fifth Ward beer and then that one. And so after that, we are open. So the suggestions are always welcome, and we can find a lot of stuff in our store here by us. So give us suggestions. Otherwise, you know, if you want to ship us something that isn't nationally available, of course, we're not going to decline.
Yeah. Never decline a free beer.
Nope. All right. I think that does it for today's episode. Tune in next week for part 2 of going behind the scenes of track and field, the business of track and field, making the sport better, all that good stuff. I don't even know, you know, just it's for the good of the sport, people. It's for we're doing it for the good of the athletes, for the good of the sport. I don't know why I said it like that. 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you DM us it, and we will enter you into the giveaway. Share it on your story. You're entered 16 times. If you enter it on or if you put it up on your Insta story, you're entered like so many times.
Fucking roast me. Make me hurt emotionally.
Yeah. Leave that audio recording on Anchor. Roast Adam.
We'll play it in the show.
And if you are completely against putting your voice on there, you can also DM us something and I'll read it out loud for Adam too.
DM Chris personally, so I don't see it until the podcast.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you don't want to do a voice, just send me my personal account on Insta a DM of what you want to roast Adam, and then I'll read those out.
God, that's gonna be such a good podcast.
God, what if we only get like one roast?
Wait, I have a request. If we get ones that are sent in to you, can either Jordan or Jax read them?
Sure.
That would be funny.
Okay. That does it.
Tune in next week for our episode with Trials and Miles and Sidious Mag. It's gonna be a good one.
And until then,
Live,
stay
laugh,
true,
love.
drink a brew.